And welcome, ladies and gentlemen, once again to what I hope is your favorite podcast about comic books, Outcast United. It is I, your host, Chris, along with my lovely wife,
Kat. Hello, welcome.
And this week we have a very special guest with us, my very own brother, Will. You guys have probably seen a couple of his posts or his comments here and there in the group. This is, for lack of a better term, we're only 2 years apart. He's my older brother, but he is my lifelong road dog when it comes to all things nerddom. We have been there and back again, like a Hobbit's adventure, on a couple of comic book journeys, whether it's movies, action figures, comic books themselves, whatever. We've been there and back again.
Yep.
So, without further ado, I will let Will introduce himself and give us a little background on him and his comic book fandoms.
Well, like Chris said, I'm Will. I'm his older brother. We've been fans of comic books pretty much our whole lives. For me personally, it's in the blood because our mom was a geek. She's a Trekkie and a Whovian, and so that level of interest in all things that at one time was outside the norm is what we grew up with. I started out mainly as a DC fan, out of a love for Batman, and then I progressed into Marvel in the early '90s through Wolverine, and that was my take for a long time. It was Batman and Wolverine. That was pretty much all I read. And
so when Batclaw came around, you were happy,
right?
Batclaw was the perfect. Oh my god! Come on, let's go.
We have him on the wall.
I know. And then after that, in the mid '90s, we stumbled upon the greatness that was Milestone Comics.
Yep.
And that really changed a lot of stuff for us because it was the first time we saw not only representation as Black kids in comics without being a stereotype or a sidekick or the comic relief, but actual mainstay characters with their own comics and legitimate backstories and not being hokey or anything like that. And then on top of that, they were Black owned and created, so it was amazing. And I to this day, I'm 43 and I still love comics and video games. When we started with the Atari, our dad was a gamer, so we had like the 5200 when we were kids and grew up playing video games. So comics and video games and all things geeky like that
come a long way
part of our life. So when it comes to that kind of stuff, I tend to be straightforward and old school, I guess you call it, about a lot of stuff. While the movies are great, I do sometimes have issues with the way they stray. I understand dramatic licensing on some things, but other stuff, it just don't make no sense.
Right.
So it's just, we just get it in. We go for it.
Well, you're also a big anime fan, too.
Yes. I've been an anime fan since before.
Watching Dragon Ball on badly German dubbed VHS. You laugh, but that's how we watch. What was it, movie 9? I think it was movie 9, The Return of Cooler.
It was The Return of Cooler. It was weird because it was a German English translation dub of movie 9 that I got from the first time I went to Dragon Con in '98. At that point, Dragon Ball Z was not.
It wasn't at the top of the hat everywhere. Yeah.
Yeah, you couldn't. It was before you could turn your head and see something Dragon Ball.
There was no Funimation. There was no Crunchyroll. There was no YouTube. There was none of this. None of the weebs, as they call them now. Like
we used to have to do some dirty digging for.
It was like being Indiana Jones. It was the Wild Wild West of anime in America.
God, it was.
I mean, back then we had. I know that I was a fan of anime from way back from Battle for the Planets or G-Force. Onto when we stumbled onto the greatness of the Ronin Warriors one summer. It just, for an unknown reason, a channel in Georgia where we stay played the Ronin Warrior anime for a whole summer. And out of the blue one summer, we stumbled on this thing and not knowing what the hell it was. And after one episode, we were like, oh my God. So we set our VCR to record it every day until we got the whole thing.
Yep.
I mean, we were so into it and so lost that we had our own martial arts club, and God, that was horrible.
What did it say? It was Channel 36.
No, probably Channel 17. No,
17 or 36.
TBS is where we first saw. It was probably 36. TBS is where we first saw Vampire Hunter D.
Yes, it was late night.
Showed you the difference in television
because played
Vampire. It was unedited too.
Yeah,
It was unedited.
Y'all can't see my face right now, but I just got a face.
oh yeah, because they ran it after like I think it was like after midnight or something like that.
Yeah, it was like either. They ran it straight, which unfiltered anime on channel Studio 17.
After 10 o'clock, they showed unedited stuff back then.
Yeah, and Vampire Hunter D probably still shouldn't have been on TBS for one, and it damn sure shouldn't have been on regular television for two, and it damn for sure shouldn't have been unedited.
Yeah, but much like with the randomness of the Ronin Warriors, Vampire Hunter D playing like that was clearly evident of somebody who was a fan who had programming powers.
Right, and they're just like, hey,
put on what they wanted to watch. And then whatever happened.
Producers are going to be awake at this time.
Right. Nobody's going to.
Like, the people who, my bosses are not going to see this. This is what I want to watch, so I'm going to put it on. It went like that. It was much like a couple of years later, after we saw Vampire Hunter D, Chris and I went to the old Avondale Mall to the Dollar Theater to watch a movie during the summer, right?
Yeah, where it is a Walmart now.
Yeah, I know. But back there, it was the Avondale Mall. And upstairs, they had a movie theater. And near the end of the show, it was a $1 movie, right? So we went. And just to see anything, and they just happened to be showing the GoBots that time we went. And like, who had a print of GoBots that they threw on at that particular point? Like, who did they convince that, like, hey, I got this copy of GoBots that we can show? Like, the full movie? Yeah, man, the full movie. How the hell? Don't ask questions. But
at the same time, it was a Dollar Theater in a hood mall. Uh-huh. Like, who was going? The odds of anybody even watching it and having any idea what it was, and then on top of it, saying anything. Like,
you either went in knowing what you were getting yourself into, or
you just went in and just
knew the ride. The GoBots was because when we were kids, they played GoBots on the. I believe it was on USA's Superstation.
GoBots were when your parents could afford Transformers.
Super Express or whatever it was called on
USA.
They played GoBots as an option to Transformers because Channel 46 and their Saturday morning lineup had Transformers. So they couldn't get Transformers, so they got GoBots. And
that's that's pretty much happened for a lot of kids' birthdays. Their parents couldn't get Transformers, so they got GoBots.
Exactly. Like you wanted with Sidekill when you wanted Starscream.
Right. Oh God.
Ooh, look.
GoBots so hard.
Sidekill.
Because GoBots basically look like Transformers that got stuck halfway through transformation. Because they're not entirely a vehicle, but they're not entirely a robot.
You know what it was? This is what you get when you order from Wish before it was Wish. I guarantee you Wish got their idea.
The picture was Optimus Prime. I got Leader 1.
Yeah, I know. Is he a robot or is he an airplane? He's both.
He's both at the same time.
Oh God!
Yeah.
Oh God!
I'll show you some pictures if you've never seen GoBots. I'll show you.
I somehow missed this. Like I jumped over.
The videos I posted this past weekend of the Saturday morning like cartoons. GoBots is in one of those videos. The opening for GoBots is in there somewhere.
Like an hour long. I am not searching through those.
I watched them because I remember most of those cartoons. They were great to watch the openings of.
I watched probably 99% of those cartoons at some point.
Yeah. It was great to watch the Space Rangers. Rainbow Bright, probably toward the end. But it was great to see the opening for Space Rangers, the Galaxy Rangers.
Oh yeah, Galaxy
and the anime opening it had, and it still looks amazing.
Wait, are you talking about Saber Rider or are you talking about the Galactic Marshals?
Both are in there. So is Brave Star.
Yeah. But like the Galactic Marshals was amazingly good and
Saber Rider
was fantastic. You can't
and the Star Sheriffs in the sky.
Yeah, because they had a great 80s rocking opening, okay?
And it had 80s animation. It looked so pretty.
The opening animation told you what the show was going to be. Think about it.
It was so pretty. And it still looks pretty. Like when I saw it in the montage of openings of cartoons, I was like, fuck yeah. Like it still looks amazingly beautiful.
It still holds up, and so does the Galactic Marshals.
That 2-minute opening looks better than like 90% of the cartoons that's on Cartoon Network right now.
See, I feel that way about the opening of the old Sailor Moon versus Sailor Moon Crystal. Like watching the series again with Kylie, I love the openings of the old series, even if I prefer the story in the new series.
I just like the opening. There's certain cartoons that have amazing openings that will always... The openings to Thundercats, Silverhawks, Saber Riders,
Yep.
Like the opening to G.I. Joe the movie, not the G.I. Joe cartoon.
No. Because nothing beats the Broadway musical opening of the G.I. Joe movie animated.
Damn right.
Okay, I mean, come on. Blue plans take Cobra.
I remember that.
Yeah, I love like especially when the G.I. Joe was like fighting evil, whatever. There's trouble
land and sea and air. G.I. Joe is there. Like
exactly.
It's an amazing
opening.
It is a fun.
And if anybody's ever curious, this is a conversation that happens every time these two get together.
It's not the same conversation.
No. But this energy level,
yes,
all the time.
But yeah, the G.I. Joe opening is like there have been times I've put on G.I. Joe the movie just to watch the opening. Like I don't actually want to watch the rest of the movie. I just want to watch the opening.
Really, and then I find something to watch.
Oh my god!
Movie with the 7 steps to heaven battle from Retaliation.
Yes, that would actually probably be the best. Yeah. Can't wait for the Snake Eyes movie.
But never, ever will opening song be as intrusive as DuckTales.
Well, no, I mean DuckTales is awesome.
No, I'm just like the opening song just out of nowhere will just pop into your head randomly. You're walking on the street, DuckTales, woo! You're like, wow, where did that come from?
I've been watching the new one just because I wanted to see Gizmo Duck and Darkwing. So
I had the song stuck in my head ever since I started watching.
To have that be where, you know, Drake Mallard used to be the actor that played him, and then he had this whole thing that fell apart because he did get to play him in a new movie that was getting made, and then the whole thing, and then that twist at the end.
We haven't reached that part yet.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, I want it. You know,
she's cat sitting there looking confused, like, huh? I'm like, we haven't gotten it. We've just gotten past Gizmo Duck being introduced, and the billionaire trying to take over Gizmo Duck and keep and have him for himself and everything.
Okay.
We're somewhere at the top of season 2.
Yeah.
Okay. No, that's fine. That's fine. Just,
although they have announced that the next season, season 4, I think it is.
The that they take on it is amazing.
Is amazing. Okay, they have announced that season 4, Darkwing's getting an hour. Is whatever the new season is going to be. Darkwing's getting an hour special.
Nice.
In the season, it's going to be an hour special about Darkwing Duck in DuckTales. So.
Okay.
I'm actually really looking forward to the
greatness of David Tennant being Uncle Scrooge.
Yeah, I like David Tennant being Uncle Scrooge. What I like more is that they took the opportunity to use DuckTales to put all these universes together. Like apparently Goofy shows up and shows pictures of Max and his girlfriend, which connects the Goof Troop series to DuckTales. Right. And then I just watched the Ancestor episode, or not the Ancestor episode, but the Spy episode with Mrs. Beakley fighting against Fowl. And the page from out of the book, which was Gummy Berry Juice, which connects the Gummy Bears to DuckTales. And then they connected Tailspin to it because the pirate captain.
Yeah, Don Carnard.
Don Carnard, yeah, he was in an episode of DuckTales, which connects Tailspin to DuckTales, and then Darkwing Duck connect. Like they centralized all these different universes together finally. By using the new DuckTales TV show and everything.
Yeah, no, I mean it's fantastic. But the cat was talking about how DuckTales just pop in your head. When you look back on the Disney block, DuckTales had the best. It's a toss up for me between DuckTales and Darkwing Duck as far as in the best opening theme, because Rescue Rangers was good, but the theme song was weak.
Because I was thinking Rescue Rangers.
What?
I was sitting there thinking when you were talking about them, I was like, oh no, Rescue Rangers was all right.
Yeah, no, Rescue Rangers. How's it stand up next to Darkwing Duck?
Daring Duck of Mystery.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Darkwing. Yeah, I will say
Darkwing. Darkwing owns the night. That's why that rocks.
I will say Darkwing is up there. Like Darkwing is definitely in the top 5, probably number 1. As far as the rest of them, because
I'm not. It can't stand the candle to some of the earlier '80s stuff. But
I'm saying like in the Disney block, in general, like when you look at it that aspect, like Tailspins. Let's just be real. There's literally a whole section of the Tailspin opening theme song that to this day there are people who have no idea what they say.
Until you actually
Tailspin, and it's like, what?
Spin it where you spin it, you can get it if you get it. If you spin it where you get it, you can get it tail spinning.
All right, then there you go. Then. All right, then. So Will knows what the hell.
I still don't know what the hell he just said. So I'm on it.
For anyone who was wondering, there is that gibberish part of the tailspin.
Somebody actually knows what they say.
Somebody actually knows what they just said. Okay. So, yeah, but as far as, Tailspin was an interesting opening. DuckTales was a better one.
Darkwing Duck.
Darkwing Duck was definitely better.
Chippendale.
Chippendales was okay. And then what else? There was another cartoon, wasn't there? It was Chippendale, Darkwing Duck, Tailspin.
Goof Troop.
Goof Troop. I was not a big fan of Goof Troop.
Me. The weird part about it, a lot of people have so much love for the Goofy movie, but not for Goof Troop itself. The show was weak.
But do you know they only have love for the Goofy movie because of Powerline?
Yeah, but that's exactly not that great though.
Right.
I mean,
but it was the most awesome song when you were 9 years old.
But it was all right. It was awesome when you were 9.
It does not hold up. People try to make it hold up, but it doesn't.
No, it really doesn't. But
all right. So this past weekend, in case
you're under a rock,
you were under a rock and you didn't know, this past weekend DC did something that I think that I personally think changed the game. And I don't say this as just a DC fan. I say this as a comic book fan in general. To me, Warner Brothers and DC changed the face of cons in general to me. If you don't know, this past weekend on Saturday, DC did what they call DC Fandom. And what it was the Hall of Heroes. It was originally supposed to be a one-day event with the Hall of Heroes, and it spanned out across the multiverse, showing a whole bunch of other things. But it grew too big, and so they split it into 2 days. One was this past Saturday on the 22nd. The next one will be September 12th. This past Saturday, for 24 hours, DC held a free virtual comic book convention.
Now, granted, there was only 8 hours of content that was re-shown over those.
And then it was just re-shown over the 24-hour period. So you tap in and watch whatever you wanted after the initial. But it gave them, to me, it gave them the opportunity to do stuff that they normally don't get to do. Because when you're at another con, like say San Diego Con, the biggest con that everybody thinks about, you've got like Hall H or whatever you're using for like an hour a day to show stuff. You know, where they were doing 8 hours, and granted, even though it wasn't even long, it shows it doesn't have to be. They did they opened with the Wonder Woman panel at 1, and it was maybe 25 minutes, under 30 minutes long.
It was scheduled for 25 minutes.
It was scheduled for under 30 minutes. And Patty Jenkins, Gal Gadot, Kristen, whatever her name is going to be the Cheetah.
The guy that plays Steve Trevor.
The guy that plays Steve Trevor. And the dude that's the Mandalorian, because he's in it, he's playing Maxwell Lord. Mm-hmm. Him and Gal Gadot are the only two that I really care. It was like, hey, you're the Mandalorian and you're Wonder Woman. Like, that's how I see the movie.
In a panel.
So they all came onto the panel together. They talked, they laughed, they joked, they answered some fan questions, and then they showed the new trailer for Wonder Woman 84 in 25 minutes.
You know, the beauty of that is that they don't have to worry about the setup. They don't have to worry about fan applause interrupting somebody talking.
Exactly.
You don't have to worry about being sat all the way in the nosebleed section with two.
I got to see everybody perfectly. I got to hear everybody.
Beauty costumers with giant headgear sitting in front of you, too stupid to take their headgear off. Like,
I got to see the trailer perfectly and hear it really well. Like, it was a great. Like,
gone are the days where we have to see grainy video cam footage off the phone. You can actually see a studio quality trailer right after, and I
went on Twitter with the con
of it, not on the front end, but they make more money on the back end because everybody got to see it in the same quality.
Exactly. Yeah, I went on Twitter. I was like, DC Fandom, best con I've ever been to. Like, I got to see all the panels I wanted to see. I didn't have to worry about scheduling nothing. I literally laid in bed all day with my wife and watched the con and got to see everything I wanted to see.
The fact that you could do it from the comfort of your home, you had all the snacks you had to worry about, you wanted. You didn't have to worry about, like, food, how about the weather, about,
we can pause it.
Con BO or getting a con flu or anything like that.
Man,
didn't have to worry about whether or not I had enough money to pay for parking or hotel room or food for the day. Or
biggest bonus was definitely being able to pause a panel because some of them were pre-recorded. So you can just pause it and then go to the bathroom and then come back and finish watching the panel.
No lines at the bathroom made it work.
No lines at the bathroom. I didn't have to worry about stepping in pee.
I didn't have to worry about people that have been at the con for 3 days and not showering or wearing
Con-BO.
Oh, God. The con funk.
The con
funk. I didn't understand.
I thought the con flu. You get after
that's the con purge. Those are two totally different things for people that don't know. If you've never been to a convention, Con-BO is the people who've been at the convention for either since it opened or if you're on the second day since the first day, and they haven't been back to their hotel room or wherever they live to shower and clean up. And so now they are funky because they have been bumping against other people and sweating, standing in line. And they
for some reason we only have cons during the summer. Like, hey, give me a con in November, please.
Man, I would be so happy for a con in the dead of winter.
Yes.
Or even like in fall, just when it's cooler. Not in because for people that don't know it, here in Georgia, our cons come in spring, like late spring going into summer, or late summer before
going into hell.
Right.
Yeah,
well, we're at like nutsack heat outside.
We don't get a full fall. It's kind of warm outside, and then all of a sudden, I'm underneath Satan's ball sack. Got it.
Right.
That's
the biggest con that happens here in Georgia, of course, is Dragon Con, which happens on Labor Day weekend, first weekend of September. And oh my God, September heat in Georgia is.
I've seen some cosplays, and I'm just like, how are you not dead inside?
Right.
I'm dead from looking at you, dude. I just walked past you, and I walked.
Right. Like there are times I've seen people in cosplays, and I'm just like, there's not a person in there. You're like, it's just a bunch of sweat soaked inside that's still just moving. Because there's no way.
The person hasn't turned to a raisin.
It's 90 degrees, and I've been out of my car 5 minutes, and I'm already dripped in sweat. There's no way in hell you're still alive in that thing. Like, so they did this amazing con. They showed they allowed them to debut everything that they were doing. And what I loved is that the con didn't just show comic books. It showed comic books. It talked about movies. It talked about video games.
TV shows.
Jim Lee got a whole panel, and not just a panel, but his panel was about him looking at other artists who submitted their artwork to be shown and telling people what he thought of their work.
I know.
He actually did it live. Like, they were streaming with the artists and stuff. So, you got pro tips from somebody in the industry.
From not just anybody, from Jim Lee, who is considered, to me personally, Jim Lee is like right under Alex Ross.
Yeah.
I give you that, yeah.
Like, if I couldn't
when I think about comic book artists, I honestly think Jim Lee, Alex Ross, and McFarlane.
You know what though?
You cannot deny that McFarlane's art was fantastic. Not even including Spawn. Think about his work on Spider-Man before he left Marvel.
Oh, I know, but that's my thing though. Everybody loves McFarlane's spiderwebs and the way he made Spider-Man look, but I personally feel like there's no challenge to making Spider-Man look good. First off,
have you seen Spider-Ham?
I've seen Spider-Ham, but he didn't draw Spider-Ham. He drew Spider-Man. And I say this because Spider-Man's costume is not complicated. It is a difficult, as a person who's gone to art school and knows techniques, it is a difficult technique to draw. But it is not a complicated costume.
No, if you can do
drawing all them damn lines over the human body when he goes into odd contortionist positions, difficult, yes. Complicated, yes. But is it magical?
Actually, if you really want to break it down, and it's actually one of the most basic things that you learn in the drawing 101, the very first class you take in college.
Drawing a straight line.
No, doing contour lines.
I know. I'm just. How to
draw a straight line?
Yeah. $2,000 for a class. It's like you go from point A to point B. Ta-da! Class is over.
Define what a line is. Segment between.
But you learn contour, and I get it. But in the grand scale of those three, Alex Ross, Jim Lee, and Todd McFarlane, McFarlane is not in the top three to me.
Okay, but that's the thing, though. It was my list.
It is your list, and I'm just trying to figure out why he's number three, because he's really known for drawing Spider-Man.
I'll tell you why he's number three. He's number three because I can't think of another artist's name that I know right off the top of my head.
Michael Turner?
Michael Turner.
Who?
Michael Turner?
No, drawing a blank.
Dwayne McDuff.
Okay, I thought Dwayne is more of a writer than an artist, though.
He was also an artist.
He did both parts.
Yeah.
I know. Look, I realize that now, but I'm saying when I think about artists, when I think of Dwayne, the greatness for me for Dwayne was his creativity and his writing. I mean, look at his work on Justice League.
He also wrote a lot of. I don't know if a lot of people know, but he also wrote Justice League: A New Frontier, the one with
George Perez.
He did that. That was him.
Oh, New Frontier was fantastic. It was one of the
New Frontier was Dwayne McDuff. That was one of his.
Yeah, I mean,
George Perez.
So great.
Yeah. So since we're talking about Dwayne, we're gonna skip ahead to a bunch of stuff and get right to the one that's one of the main reasons I wanted you to be on the podcast when I did this one, because of our connection personally as comic book fans that we have about Milestone. So during the DC fandom, they did at 4:45. They just on the calendar on the schedule. It just said special. Huge panel, or whatever. There was no name. You didn't know who was on the panel. You didn't know what it was about. It was just like, if you want to watch it, tune in at 4:45. So of course I did.
People at least show up.
Right, and that's exactly what I did. Like what we did was we left it running on the computer and just muted it whenever something we didn't want to watch was on, and we just went and did other stuff and set alarms on the phone to come back. So we come back, and I come back to Jim Lee, Phil Lamar, and two of the guys that helped found Milestone Comics doing a panel together.
Amazing.
And it turns out the panel is a Milestone comic book panel. And so they were sitting there talking about, they tell the story of how Milestone was created, which I had never heard before. So it turns out
they did a special about it on Sci-Fi one time.
Yeah, I did not see that. So it was cool to hear the story from the mouth, from the horse's mouth, as they say. Right. So he's like, they were at San Diego Comic-Con. And so him and the other guy, and him and his other friend, they were talking about it, and they're walking around the con talking about starting a completely black-owned comic book company.
Right.
And the friend looks at him like he's crazy. He's like, man, nobody's going to let you start a black-owned comic book company. And so they're walking and talking some more, and they go and they get Dwayne. They go and get Dwayne McDuffie. And they walk around the same 3 blocks, he said, for like an hour or whatever, talking about it. And at the end, Dwayne was like, man, nobody's going to let you start a completely black-owned comic book company. Let's do it. Let's do it.
Let's do it.
And so then they're like, well, we know how to write comic books, and we know how to draw. We don't know nothing about money. So we need a money guy. And thankfully, they knew somebody who was in finance. And the reasoning was epic to me. It was like, well, he's in finance, so he should know how to handle money.
And then,
I mean, that's a simple line of logic. You can't beat that.
Right, like, and it's like, you can't deny that type of logic. That's like such a, you crack the egg and you scramble it, kind of.
It's actually pure. It's the most purest logic ever. It's like,
right.
He's in finance. Finance is money, so he knows money.
Right, so yeah, they get him and they get together, and that's how they do it. And they go to DC, and next thing you know, boom, we get Milestone Comics, which I feel so many people have no idea what Milestone is, what Milestone truly is. Not Static Shock, not the few characters we've seen in Young Justice or whatever, but what Milestone.
What it really was, when at the heart of it, okay, what you're looking at is the most pure form of representation for black people, or people of color in general, because it wasn't just black people; they were Hispanic.
Right, it wasn't just black people.
It was
I tell people that all the time too.
It was realistically speaking, it was a minority-majority transfer, basically, like they used to do in schools. So we wound up with, where white characters were supportive characters, where white characters were every now and then they were there. They were not the forefront, and not in the demeaning way, but legitimately to tell a story.
Well, I don't know if not in a mean way, because the one white dude in the entire comic that stands out to me was the one that turned into the giant rat. The Rat King.
What? Look.
I'm just saying, I think that's, I mean, you gotta admit, that's kind of,
You're forgetting about Alvin. God dang, his name's hard. He was the money man behind hardware, remember?
Yes, the rich, corrupt white guy?
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah, so what I'm saying is that, like, white people didn't have the best representation in Milestone. Like, that's just...
Okay, but realistically speaking, They may
I mean, they're not wrong.
Light,
I'm saying
lights.
Yeah.
You know. So, but what we had though, we got perfect representation. We got real characters with heart and depth and realistic backstories, and they were told from a true perspective because they were written and drawn by people of color who could legitimately give them heart and structure. You have characters like take Flashback from the Blood Syndicate, right? It was in the early 90s. Crack cocaine was there where she was addicted to crack. She was a super-powered former gangbanger who was addicted to crack and trying to beat that. And one of the best issues that she was in was the early issue, like issue 3 or 4 of the Blood Syndicate, where they walk into a trap. A bomb goes off and kills everybody. Her power is time travel, but only for 3 seconds.
Yeah.
Right? And she spends an entire, like a page and a half of panels flashing back, trying to warn everybody.
That's what I was telling you about,
going off. And it messed her up big time because she kept flashback, kept seeing everybody die, flashing back and seeing everybody die until she finally got it right. That was deep for me to watch that and watch her just break down after the fact, you know, or to have her brother who they were connected because she could travel back in time 3 seconds and he was 3 seconds out of phase with the real world.
Yeah, and the closer he got to her, the more solid he became.
Exactly, because of their connection. And then the fact on top of that, that they were biracial because they were Black and Hispanic, and he was gay. And they were all told with heart and realism, you know, not as a joke, not as a pander, but as legitimate flesh and blood, for the lack of a better term, characters.
Yep.
You know, and it was amazing stuff. And they had great powers because it's a hard thing. A lot of people don't think about it. But if you had to, on the spot, come up with a character right now that had original powers.
Man.
Right?
Just about everything you can think of.
Or even an original way to use their powers, even.
Exactly.
But that was the beauty of Milestone is, one, it was back in the 90s. And granted, you could argue that nothing has really changed as far as comic books are concerned between then and now, other than, you know, there have been some new heroes and there have been some new mutants who have been created. But for the general most part of it, you know, there hasn't been a whole lot of new creation. So
because the comic book market is so overladen with fans who don't like things to change. They like the characters how they like their characters, and they pitch a fit if they're changed. So new characters have a hard time gaining ground.
Completely.
So that was the beauty of Milestone, was that not only did they
also have like the first gay or lesbian couple? Like,
yes, that's one of the things that I like. I talk about when people are like, there needs to be more representation in comic books. We need to see more gays and lesbians and people of color. And it's like 20 years ago, DC gave y'all this and y'all shit on it.
Mm-hmm. It was 20 years too early.
It was 20 years too early. But the problem is, I mean, it's a whole other argument to be had. But I also feel like even if DC gave it to them now, they still wouldn't appreciate it because it just. Because some people would call it pandering.
Right, yeah. People are pandering now. So, but it's.
I think, realistically speaking, people have a right to call it pandering when they change previously straight characters to
be gay.
That is pandering.
Yes, that is pandering.
Give me a character that's new and comes out as already gay. That right there is representation. When you take an established character who's got who's got almost a century on his belt. Take the Sentinel, for God's sake. The Sentinel was straight-laced for years, and all of a sudden, now he's gay. Like, come on.
Yeah, they took a new twist. It's much like how Captain Marvel is. They're talking how they want to make Captain Marvel gay in the next movie or whatever, and it's kind of just like, well, she's not gay though. Like, so that's
pandering.
That's pandering.
Speaking of pandering, though, that brings up a point that I want to talk about. I read an article that I think you posted about how they're actually going to handle the relaunch of Milestone. Is it legitimately that they felt like it was time to bring it back and do a good job with it, or is it pandering based on the current climate in America?
Now,
being a money grab.
We actually just had this conversation last night
because I actually asked the same question.
She asked the exact same question, and the thing is that DC's been trying to bring Milestone back for 3 or 4 years now. Mm-hmm. But as it turns out, when Dwayne McDuff died, he left his wife all the rights that he owned. And it turns out Dwayne owned
he owned control.
He owned like 90 some odd % of not just Milestone, but also the rights to the characters.
Yeah.
So DC's been trying to figure out how to work with her to get a deal with her so they can actually use the characters
She gave
in their comic books,
but they didn't really do a whole lot with them. The only one
because they didn't have the full reign to do stuff with them.
They don't have full control of the characters. They don't have. Part of the reason why you only ever see Static is because he's one of the only characters that they have rights to.
Right, along with the characters that were in Static's comic book. So they're using the one guy that they got, unfortunately. You know, and yeah, we've seen Icon and Rocket, but when you think back about it, we only saw them partially in Young Justice.
Right.
And even then, I don't think Icon even had any lines.
He had like one line in a war episode.
Right, and Rocket
line when they introduced Rocket to the team.
Right, you know, and Rocket had a few lines here and there when she showed, but they couldn't use them a whole lot because they couldn't, you know, it was just out of legality of it all or whatever.
And right. I know that there's a difference between the power sets and stuff like that, but that also, like, somebody mentioned, and it might have been you or somebody else in the group or something, mentioned something about them not using Static to his fullest potential, or him constantly getting the shaft because, like, you know, they didn't promote him well and stuff like that. But it's just like, I kind of don't think that he should have been the character to be the adaptation of Milestone coming over, because there is so many similarities on the surface between Black Lightning and Static in general. It's like, okay, so this is just a younger Black Lightning. Okay.
Yeah, because he comes off to the casual reader.
To the casual reader, to the casual observer, that's what it comes off.
But you know what, though? When you know Milestone, though, you realize that Static was the only choice they had. Because legitimately, they could
everybody in the universe, with the exception of Icon and Rocket, got their powers from a gang war gone wrong when the cops.
I mean, Static got his powers from the gang war.
Yeah,
he was at the Big Bang.
Everybody in that universe.
Everybody but Icon and Rocket, and maybe Cobalt and Zombie.
Yeah, other than them, all the major players got their powers from the experimental.
But what I was saying is that like there couldn't have been a Blood Syndicate cartoon.
Well, no, not in true form of the Syndicate, because they were.
There couldn't have been a hardware cartoon.
They were knocking over crack houses.
Right.
You can't send that to a kid-friendly show. Like even on Cartoon Network, Adult Swim, there's only so much they can get away with without it just getting them into all kinds of legal trouble as far as what they could do to adequately represent them like they were in the comics.
Right. And that's true. That's true. But what Warner Brothers can do is feature them in a animated movie, because they have started breaching. I mean, God, the last animated movie that they did, Justice League Dark Apocalypse, was so graphic and so bloody. I don't think that the content that's in Crime Syndicate could be any
Blood Syndicate.
Sorry,
but the problem
it would be worse, because let me think about like major plot lines that went into it, right?
Dude, not even major plot lines. The death of Tech 9.
The death of Tech 9 was horrific.
He literally melted.
Yeah, he melted in front of the whole crew. Okay.
He went to use his powers and his body liquefied itself. Like he just melted off the bone.
She forget what her whole storyline.
Yeah.
Because Masquerade.
But yeah, we just saw like Deathstroke
would work now.
Freaking
watching somebody chop somebody up and watching a body melt are two different forms of graphic violence.
Yeah.
When it comes to the FCC and putting stuff on TV, chopping somebody up and watching somebody melt are two different types of graphic violence, and one is more acceptable than the other. Mind you, in my book,
he didn't just like quickly melt. He didn't ash, or he didn't like just go automatic puddle like the Wicked Witch of the West.
Oh no, they were screaming and probably eyes falling out first and skin.
Imagine the end of Raiders when they're looking, they open up the. When they open up
I've seen way better ones.
And then the face melts off, and that's how Tech 9 died. Like, think of Indiana Jones.
I've seen some equally horrible things.
So, but my thing is, it comes down to licensing. Yeah, they could do a Blood Syndicate animated movie, but
they got to get a license.
They got to get the property in order to be able to do it.
But anyway, that was the other thing is, like, I've seen articles since the fandom talking about like Milestone's coming back. They officially said they officially said they're in talks to bring it back. There's no
they said they're in talks They were talks weird, but they have plans for like a release of the catalog of some of the old comics digitally, and then Icon and Rocket getting their own comic in like 2021.
But again, this is all.
It's still all in talks.
There's nothing solid.
Yeah, there's nothing concrete. We're in talks to.
I know, but you don't come to the table. You don't come to the con and do a surprise panel without being further along in talks than you guys are talking about. Like realistically speaking, I'm hoping that's the case. Signing the deal. Now, granted, it's true. It's not permanent yet. It's not official, but they are close enough to do this whole panel thing. That says that they're close. They're really close to having it done. They're like all but.
Yeah, I will give you that. I will definitely give you that.
There's that. My idea also was that maybe they were doing it as a way to push the fans, to push the agenda to get it done. Like I
people
thought
would
maybe,
be amped about it by hearing it.
Right. Yeah. If anything can get the ball rolling, fans will. And so hashtag bring Milestone back.
Yeah, full on. I mean, and like when the redesign, I know it's just initial. I like the redesign on Rocket and Icon. I think it looks good.
See, but that is where we differ. I'm not entirely a fan of Icon's new looking suit. I prefer the African flag green, black, and look that he had in his old suit. I kind of liked it.
Well, but you got to spend 30 years. They need to do a bit of an.
I know they got to modernize it. They got to make it look good, and I expect them to do that. I just don't want. I think the thing that will probably turn me off the most is that when they do this, they change. Like I feel like nothing should be changed. Like I get it. You want to bring Rocket and Icon back. Literally, all you need to do is change the dates.
Yeah.
Instead of it taking place in 1990, whatever, make it 2020. Just change the dates. Change his history. So yeah, he still landed and grew up a slave.
Realistically speaking, the heart of the character comes from his experience of landing during slavery and growing up as a slave.
Exactly.
That is the heart of Icon. That's why he works. And Rocket convincing him to fight for his people again, which unfortunately that sentiment in America has not changed. So that doesn't change.
And I think it'll be interesting also if they decide to try to give Rocket powers, because I think it was great to me that Rocket actually had no powers. All her abilities came from what on his planet.
The safety system from his rocket.
Right, it was the safety system. It was the airbag from his rocket that she used. And
as the belt?
Yeah, the belt was a safety system. It was like an airbag. All it did was it absorbs kinetic energy to protect the person inside the bubble. Right. For when you're in a car accident or whatever in his rocket ship. And he gave it to her to wear, and she used it as a way to fly and propel herself and to have like an energy blast or whatever. She would jump off of a building, land, and it would absorb the kinetic energy from the impact, and that would give her. She could redirect it, and that's how she was able to fly or jump, really well or whatever.
Deal damaging punches and things like that.
Yeah. So but it was advanced technology on Earth, but she was, I remember.
My thing is, though, was like, I'm wondering how are they? I mean, because when the cartoon, they use his origin in the cartoon for Static, so they don't make any changes like that. He still got his powers the same way.
Very true.
So they don't need to go around messing with that either. And
I think for those who don't know, we call him Static because when we found him in the comics, the comic is just the original 90s Milestone comic is just called Static.
Yes,
the iconic first issue. The tagline of
I made up
the first issue story arc was called "Don't Start None, Won't Be None."
I remember that.
And as a kid growing up in the 90s, that meant something to you. I get it now that kids nowadays don't have any idea what the fuck that means.
But it was a 90s saying.
Little shits, it was important. If somebody told you don't start none, don't be none.
Now it's like, basically, he want all the smoke.
Right. He want all the smoke. You don't want this smoke. Right. But so it was a huge thing to see. Here's his character. His costume design was great. I didn't like the cartoon comic, the cartoon costume design.
It was a lot more simpler
with the boots and everything. Yeah,
with the jacket and the boots and the shirt. No,
and the hat.
I preferred him with the Malcolm X hat and the Jubilee yellow jacket trench coat.
And he had like an all black outfit.
And it was blue with the lightning bolt going across it. Actually, it was a bodysuit.
Yeah,
because it covered his feet too. He didn't wear shoes. It covered his feet from head to toe because it had the mask attachment on it. And he wore the hat to cover his head, and he flew around on the garbage can lid. and he had, which I always think I always think of it as the Jubilee yellow because Jubilee wears the yellow coat. Mm-hmm. So and Static had this Jubilee yellow rain poncho that he wore, you know. That was just like.
But they were supposed to be like everyday people. They were not supposed to be like your.
That's what made them great.
Right. The thing about it, they didn't have an Edna Mole, so he had to make his own costume. You know.
Right. They got these people in all these comic books got their powers and then created their costume. Right, and they created their costumes from what they could.
Yeah.
You know.
I mean, that's what it was. I mean, they did do a little bit better explanation when Cobalt came out for his short-lived run. He had a guy that made his costumes.
Yes, you know, Cobalt was like their Batman.
Kind of stuff. You know, but Cobalt was near the end of the run for Milestone, so his comic was really bad. I'll be honest. I can say that. As a fan of Milestone, Cobalt was trash.
Yes.
All the way around.
Cobalt was trash. I will say that. I will agree with you on that. No problem. There were some greats. Like, there are some characters in Milestone that I would really love to see. Donner and Blitzen, I'd love to see them come back.
That was the lesbian couple.
That was the lesbian couple. Iron Butterfly.
Why, son?
I want to see Donner.
Why, son?
Speaking, the entire Shadow Cabinet can come back for me. I'm good with that.
They were back for a short time in DC. They were brought back for a little while, but they weren't used fully, so it's, you know.
Right.
But I would definitely love to see the Shadow Cabinet. It wasn't Menagerie. I forget Sideshow. Yeah. The guy who was basically he could turn any limb into any animal limb.
He could turn his whole body into any animal on the planet.
Right, but he mostly used it for different limbs. Like he would turn an arm into like a tiger claw or whatever, or legs into like elephant legs, or, you know.
Yeah.
Cheetah leg.
Variant strength of that animal when he turned into him and ability and all that kind of stuff.
Mechanic, even though he was a great mechanic and stuff, was always weird. Like the teleporter he built that only worked in the dark.
Yeah, no, that was beautiful. It was.
He built the working teleportation system.
You can go anywhere on the planet except for you have to be in the dark.
You have to be in the dark in order to use it. Yeah.
I love it. It's so brilliant.
It only works in the dark. It was a great thing.
It's like it's on par with Invisible Boy from the Mystery Man. It's like
right, like I'm only invisible as long as nobody's looking at me. Yeah.
It's like, what the hell?
And how do you know you're invisible? I can just feel it.
I know it. I'm transparent. I'm clear. I'm crystal.
Oh my god.
Yeah, but that's how it was the mystery. That's how it was the Mystery Man. It was Invisible Boy was invisible so long as nobody was looking at him.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, there was like I told you about Zombie. You know him and the nanites and how he created he was basically immortal after they came into you know.
Yeah, he's only back.
But they had other
great moments when that was doing the Shadow War, where Holly was on the bad side. Holocaust literally burned him down to the bones, and he kept moving, and then was able to pull himself back together like a couple of panels later. He's better than Deadpool on every generation. Them nanites are insane.
Yeah.
So
they created
with Zombie. The art on it was just a lot.
Yeah, the art got really hard to read.
Yeah, it was.
Lord, the art got hard to read.
The style, it was rough, but the concept of the character is fantastic, and the stories that they went through were really good.
Yeah.
You know,
I mean, they created an entire universe, with characters with powers that are nothing like anybody else that existed at the time.
Exactly. You know,
they created a whole universe of new metas.
Yeah. You know, and
nobody had like.
As long as they don't try to just.
I think it was also interesting because nobody had a plethora of powers. Like Icon was the only one in Milestone who was like had a bunch of powers. But like everybody else had like one.
Yeah, and it was unique powers.
That was stupidly overpowered either.
Yeah, Icon wasn't stupidly overpowered either. But
no, probably the chick that can go back in time, but she was limited only 3 seconds, and she had to use that as best as she could and think.
Yeah.
So
I mean that's a great thing. Like, okay, she can go back and she can travel in time, but only 3 seconds. Like that's realistically like you could really only fix minor mistakes with that.
Right. You know, damn it, I burnt my toast.
Have mastered going further.
Yeah, given practice and time.
Yeah, you know, but then she was hindered by her crack habit.
Right.
So, like, realistically, if she kicked the habit, she probably could access her power to go further back.
Like, I think it's really interesting that Milestone gave us everything people complain about now that isn't in comics. They gave us a lesbian couple with Donner and Blitzen. Mm-hmm. They gave us representation with African American, Asian, Mexican people in the comic book who were not just the standard pimps, hoes, and drug dealers or whatever. They were
sidekicks.
Or sidekicks. They were actually heroes.
Yeah.
Muslims, but with Y-Sun and Iron Butterfly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So
they gave us we had a transgendered character with Mystique.
Say what?
Transgendered character with Mystique.
No, Masquerade.
Masquerade, yeah, with Masquerade. Masquerade was a woman who got the ability to transform, to shapeshift, and so the first thing she did was shapeshift to be a man, because that's what she's always felt like she was. Mm-hmm. Boom, we had a transgendered character in a comic book.
For easily 15 issues?
Yeah, 15 issues of the comic book, nobody knew.
Only reason we knew ahead of time, because in the original package deal for the first comic, it came with a poster board panel in the sleeve. And in that poster board, she was a woman on that, because they made a mistake and left her in her original form on that.
Yep. So it was a slight mistake, and that's the only. And if you didn't get that, you didn't know. So for 15 issues, Masquerade, everybody thought that Masquerade was a guy.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, it turns out Masquerade was a woman. And then there was the whole issue of dealing with that came out when they found out one day they all felt lied to, and then they were like, you could have just.
You could have said something. You could just
legitimately, you could have just told,
And it wasn't Rat King, Chris. It was the Boogeyman. And Boogeyman was another one, because he was a giant rat that controlled and talked to other rats.
Boogeyman, that was his name. The white guy who turned
but they didn't know
turned into a giant rat. So they didn't know he was white.
They had a big epic battle with a big bad, and in the midst of that, they all got knocked out and their powers got canceled.
And then when they all woke up,
he was a white
Boogeyman was a white dude.
Dude, you're white.
And everybody was just like, you're white. And he was just like, oh, shit. Yeah, I'm white. And that just that led to a whole nother cacophony of problems, because,
it's like, what white boy doing down here in the hood playing like he's one of us?
Playing like you want to be a hero with us. Right. Yeah.
Running around in the hood like you one of us. You're like, what white boy, what you
There was the self-image problems from Brick. Brick was already a big girl. She was already a big girl before she had her powers. But then when she got hit with the gas during the Big Bang, she backed up against a brick wall, and her skin became brick. Uh-huh. And so, but Brick also had Brick was also had mental. She was mentally. What's the correct? She was slow. I'm trying to think of the correct terminology.
She wasn't fully quote unquote
neuroatypical.
Neuroatypical. Right. I don't want to say I don't want to use the R word, but she was neuroatypical. So she had a lot of mental problems. So she was slow. She was a little slow in a lot of things, and it didn't help once she changed. Right. So then her problems became her skin become brick, and her body is dense as brick. She literally grew like Juggernaut height on top of that. She grew to be like 9 feet tall on top of it.
9 feet tall.
Image problems.
She was a 9 foot tall brick woman. That's as heavy as a brick woman. So she weighed like 2.5, 3 tons, something like that.
Exactly.
So she had self-image issues that she dealt with because she hated the way that she looked now. She didn't like the way that she looked before.
And now she really just hates the way she looks.
Right. Which really didn't get helped until another agent. Until another, Third Rail. When Third Rail finally confessed his love for her and told her that he actually loved the way that she looked. Mm-hmm. That actually helped her deal with her image issues.
Mm-hmm. True real love really changed it around for her. And then they did this great issue where all the girls had a girly day, and they took her to like a super power. One of the ladies in the hood who ran a salon had gotten powers too. And she went to town on Brick, like with a jackhammer, and I gave her like
because her hair even turned to brick. Because I know the thing is bald, and usually most brick people in comic books are bald, but so they don't have to worry about drawing hair. But they actually did it, so Brick's hair became brick. Even she had like braids or whatever, they became braids of bricks. Wow. And so the lady, like Will said, the lady at the salon went with a jackhammer and chisel in there, and actually did her hair to give her a new hairstyle.
Nice.
But this is stuff they faced and dealt with in the Milestone comic books that people are screaming about seeing in comic books now, and it's like people have already done it. It's been done. If you do your comic book research instead of hollering about wanting to get representation of what's happening now, see that it's been there, and then holler for them to just bring that stuff out.
Just bring it back, revamp it, polish it off, and throw it back on the shelves, like
right. Exactly. So all the Milestone stuff.
You got that. And
they're saying
of hardcore bullying too, because like you look at Static, right? And the only reason he was there, because he wasn't a gangbanger, he was a straight A science nerd. The only reason he was there at the Big Bang was because he had gone there to kill the kid who had been bullying him and beat him down. Right?
He was there to get revenge.
This local bully was a gang member, and he had beat the shit out of Virgil. And Virgil's best friend told him, you need to handle this like a man. He gave him a gun and told him where he was going to be. So Virgil was downtown when it all went down, changed his mind at the last minute, but just as he changed his mind and tossed the gun, the gas hit.
And that's how he ended up getting his powers.
Mm-hmm.
Downside is the bully got powers too.
Yeah, the downside is the bully got powers. He became Hot Streak, didn't he?
Yep.
Yeah.
If I'm not mistaken, that they did actually keep that for the cartoon.
Well, I mean, that's his origin. But the whole gun thing, the gun thing happens like in its first two episodes or whatever. But they took these issues head on. Like, they didn't try to bounce around them or, placate them or kind of water them down or whatever. They took these head on when it came to whatever the issue was. Right. Brick's image of herself, her mental problems. The fact that the Blood Syndicate itself was made up of two separate games. They were made up of the surviving game members from two warring games.
The East Side Bloods and the Force Syndicate.
Right. And they became the Blood Syndicate. They were the only surviving members from each gang after the Big Bang, and they formed a new gang together. And then they decided to become the protectors of Dakota City because they realized nobody else was going to protect the people that were still alive there. And so
it
then
wasn't even about Dakota City; they were there for the hood.
Well,
the rest of Dakota was on his own for the most part.
And so then they ended up.
But it was all about them protecting their neighborhood and stuff.
Right, and they started taking down the crack houses that were in the neighborhood.
Yeah, but they initially did it for money, though.
Right, I mean, that's a given. You need money when you start. This ain't the March of Dimes.
I mean, exactly. they tackled that in Black Lightning with Blackbird doing the same thing.
Yeah.
Blackbird was robbing from gangs and thieves.
And giving the money to the church in order for the church. She
was also keeping a little bit of, for herself as well.
Which is how she got the fancy apartment and all that stuff.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
So
it's like...
They tackled a lot of serious issues of hardcore stuff. They looked at, there was issues of betrayal, issues of people understanding what they were doing, because Dharma of the Shadow Cabinet, he sent them out on missions to do things in the correct wrongs of the world, but it was all because of a greater goal that he had set, because he could see the future and he was guiding that toward that, regardless of what ethical qualms they might have had about what they did. I mean, there was one famous issue, a great issue where they were on a mission, and because of the end goal that he saw, he basically he burn listed half the Shadow Cabinet to get to the goal that he saw in the future. Remember?
Yeah. He knew that the only way to get there.
Donner and Blitzen.
Right. He knew that the only way to get there was by sacrificing all of them now.
Jesus.
Yeah.
Well, that's.
I mean, and that was the problem with Dharma's power. Dharma's power allowed him to see the future.
But he also saw the good and the bad and all the stuff.
No, he just saw the future, and he knew the only way to get to what he needed in order to save everything, he had to sacrifice all of them now. Like, and that's just one of those tough calls that a leader would have to make. Knowing the future, we're gonna achieve our goal, but in order for me to achieve our goal, I have to burn half of my team to do it.
The only way they have to work is we're going to cut them loose now, and it caused a big rift in the Shadow Cabinet.
I mean, that's a huge.
That's how they had that spinoff comic. Remember, Chris? Heroes came from the members of the
cabinet. The members that got burned from the Shadow Cabinet. That's right. And then, of course, eventually, DC decided to do a Worlds Collide crossover, which brought the DC universe into contact with the Milestone universe. The worlds literally collided because there turns out there was a mailman who had been somehow at the Big Bang or gotten exposed to the gas. And he gained the ability to, without knowing it originally, he had the ability to walk between both dimensions when he was awake.
Yeah, basically when he fell asleep.
When he was awake, he was a mailman in Dakota. But when he went to sleep,
he was a mailman.
He woke up as a mailman in Metropolis.
Yep.
And he never realized it. And that's how he lived his life. He thought each version was a dream whenever he was awake for the other one, because that's how it worked. And so then eventually Lex Luthor figures out about him, and then that all goes wrong. And so he uses him to be a portal, and the next thing you know, Superboy meets Rocket, Superman meets Icon, Static meets everybody, and that's how the two worlds collided together. And the only reason, the greatest thing to me about this comic crossover was that they put out a special edition cover that was blank. It had the two cities meeting up at the Hobbs Bay Bridge and the Dakota Bridge, which is where the two bridges met, because both bridges had been destroyed at the time in the comics. Yeah. But the two bridges were the link in the comic book world, anyway. That's how they linked the two dimensions. But the cover of the comic was blank, except for having that in the background with a little bit of cityscape on either side or whatever. And then it came with a sheet of stickers.
Yep.
Half of the sheet had like Icon and Rocket and Hardware and all them on it. The other half of the sheet had Superman, Steel, Superboy, and all these other characters on it. And you could peel the stickers off and make your own cover.
Yes, that was awesome.
It was so awesome. Fucking awesome.
Why don't they do shit like that now? It was so fucking boss. That would be fun.
And it was regular price. It didn't cost any extra because it came with stickers or anything. Right. It wasn't like a marked up. It wasn't like a $7.99 special issue or anything. You know, that issue's probably hard as shit to find now that I think about it.
That issue probably doesn't fucking exist.
It exists because Will's got a copy of it in his stuff.
Well, I mean, like, we're not going to find that.
Let's find out. For the interwebs.
Cheaply, I don't think. And then if you do find it, you're not going to be able to find it, like, you know, with somebody who hadn't already used the stickers cheaply.
Yeah, you never know.
You never know. But anyway.
I mean, I found an unopened box of Milestone comic books. So, I mean,
you're welcome for that idea.
And I said thank you a million times. I'll even give my brother a complete set of the Milestone Comics collectible card set, and I have a complete set. We both each have a complete set.
I know.
I mean, so I thank you for it.
I know.
No, that was awesome. That was
great.
It's just funny. It's like they're thinking about like I want to find each of these cards and all that. Why don't you just buy a box, baby?
Oh well, yeah. If you want to make sense,
right? Like you want to just make it all simple and stuff.
Where do you get off using logic, lady?
I have no idea. Every once in a while it happens. I mean, it's like a bolt of lightning. It's strikes and never
so they're saying all this stuff is going to happen. February 2021 is when we should start seeing all this stuff popping up for Milestone.
Yeah, that they did say something about February being a date and stuff like that, which is the only indication that we have that there is.
They gave an actual date.
Right, but they, yeah. But,
yeah, I mean, like, whether or not it all is going to actually happen, or will it all fall apart again between now and
let's hope not.
February 2021, we don't know.
I would actually love to get into these comics, and I know that I have the opportunity to read the old ones, but I have such a hard time sometimes with older styles.
Yeah.
Just older artwork.
Well, they're going to be doing. They say if everything goes according to plan, they're going to release the original runs digitally before they do the new stuff.
Right.
It is.
So you managed to find one?
Found it. Worlds Collide #1, 1994 on eBid. It's not eBay, but eBid. But it's $4 with $2.50 shipping and so total $6.50.
That's worth it. Are the stickers intact though?
It looks like they are intact. It says it is. The copy shows no wear. The spine is great, no tears, nice colors, great eye appeal, flat, nice addition to your collection. Mint copy.
Oh shoot! You might as well get that because February, that thing's going to quadruple in price.
Well, that's the Worlds Collide. Again, anything Milestone is going to skyrocket by February.
Right. Yeah. So if you're going to collect Milestone, now is the
time to hop on anything Milestone right now.
Jesus Christ, it is.
And that's the beauty of the fact that we have original Milestone stuff. Like we were actually going to comic shops and buying them when they were on the shelves.
Yes, you have all the Milestone comics. They were all in your stuff. So you have all the Milestone comics.
That's the thing, that there was some that still got lost in the shuffle over the years. Like I was missing 3 or 4 issues of the Syndicate, which is weird because I had the entire run of the Blood. And some kind of way in the midst over the years, I lost like random issues.
I went 13.
You know?
Yeah, I mean, so then the best thing to do then is what we need to do is for you to go through, catalog which ones you're missing, and then that way we can hunt down
and get it now.
Right.
You know, because we can still get it for like $2 and $3 an issue if you can.
Exactly.
You know, and that way complete the collection, and you know, depending on how this goes, that could be like printing gold at that point.
Exactly.
Okay, so we have the other things in the DC fandom.
Right. So other stuff in the DC fandom.
We can sit here and talk about Milestone all night. So let's go to other stuff.
All right. So,
one of my favorite parts.
You said DC for you was which I will say this and I'll go back to it, which I think is interesting. You started as a Batman fan for DC and then became a Marvel fan for Wolverine, whereas I started as an Iron Man fan with Marvel.
Yeah.
And then became a DC fan with Green Lantern and the death of Superman.
Okay, but realistically, like on a smaller note, though, you were always a DC fan because of your love for the original Superman movies with Christopher Reeve.
Right. But as far as the comic books are concerned,
the comic books. You lost your shit over Iron Man 300.
Iron Man 300, that foil cover, like I still have 2 copies of it. That was just an amazingly good. I have 3 copies of the comic itself. 2 of them are foil.
The Hal Jordan cup, glow in the dark Hal Jordan.
It's on my wall right now. I'm looking right at it. The Emerald Knight story of Hal Jordan when after the death of Superman happens. But yeah, I started out as a Marvel fan with Iron Man and then became a DC fan with Green Lantern, the death of Superman, and then really 97 is what cemented it for me. Like I stopped reading Marvel comic books cold turkey, even Iron Man. Like I stopped reading Iron Man cold turkey when 97 happened and the Magnificent Seven became the Justice League in the comic.
Oh yeah.
Nothing else mattered. Nothing else mattered, man. That was it. So I just wanted to, but
it was Lopefield run of the Justice League when he did the Magnificent Seven. That was the end of it right there.
Man, that was that was just so pretty. But what I was gonna say is that you being a Batman fan, have you watched the trailer?
Okay, let me say this first and foremost. Get this out of the way. Okay, I was always concerned when the sparkly one was chosen.
Right, and a lot of people were. It wasn't just you.
Honey, he's done other stuff. And I was like, yeah, but I've never watched any of his other stuff. So what I have to judge him on is based on that. But I was still willing to give him a chance. Then the trailer comes out, and now everybody is fucking dick riding this dude. I'm like, you do realize that was just a trailer. They are meant to get your attention. That does not mean the entire movie is going to be that good.
That is true.
So I'm waiting. I'm reserving final judgment until the actual movie comes out. And that's where I'm at with it. It's like, best example of that, right? I was as far as the other geekdom, I was a fan. I still am to a lesser degree a fan of Anne Rice and her writings of the Vampire Chronicles.
Right. When
I first read Interview with the Vampire as a kid, I absolutely fell in love with her stuff. So when the movie was coming out, and I heard that the Top Gun guy was going to be Lestat, I was pissed.
Right.
I was mad.
The Top Gun guy. I love it. It's just.
Well, that's what I said at the time. Okay. So
I know. You're just like the Top Gun guy.
Yeah, no, that Tom Cruise was playing Lestat, like my all-time favorite character in the whole run of the Vampire Chronicles. He was playing Lestat. I was pissed until I watched it. He did an amazing job as Lestat.
Right.
So I reserved judgment because that's how people felt, oddly enough, and we were too young to know it at the time, but people felt the same way when Michael Keaton was cast as Batman in '88.
Well, no, I know that because I've read up on Batman because it was the guy that played Mr. Mom is going to be Batman. Yeah,
exactly. That's what they said because he was coming off of Mr. Mom.
Exactly.
Right.
Just like Bruce Willis was coming off of
Batman. What the hell?
Bruce Willis was coming off of Moonlighting when he got casted to be in Die Hard. Nobody really thought he was going to be good because was in Moonlighting.
They were so distraught with the idea of him being casted, they had to take his face off of the movie poster.
Because they didn't think anybody would actually go see the movie.
No, because in the preliminaries they found out that people
like,
weren't going
they just laughed at it. They were just like, it's a dude from Moonlighting. Like, they didn't take him serious.
Right.
So they took him straight off of him. Just like, yeah, you know what? We're just not gonna worry about that.
We're just not going to advertise him being in this.
I watched the trailer a couple of times, and I have to say, we worked in movie theaters and stuff like that, so I know trailers are meant to be
enticing.
They're meant to make you want to watch the movie.
Exactly.
But what I want to say is though is that I will say I had more faith in him being a good Batman than Ben Affleck.
And it's probably only because I was like,
and no, it wasn't just me in general. Like I said, I've watched a lot of Ben Affleck movies. I've liked them in 2.
Right. But you've never really watched any Pattinson movies.
I've not watched a single Robert Pattinson movie. But I know how Hollywood works. It's like, well, he's done more than just Twilight, so obviously he must be at least a semi-decent actor. Because between the two of them, Kristen Stewart is a horrible actress and doesn't work that often.
Look at George Clooney.
George Clooney just looked good. Doesn't mean he was a good actor.
That's what I'm saying, and that's how I felt about Pattinson.
I didn't feel like that. What I'm saying is like the trailer made me realize he had the intensity to be Batman in the trailer. Whether it's cut to be that way or whether or not he actually has it, it shows me that he has more than I thought he did to begin with. So I am wholeheartedly saying that I think he is going to be a good Batman.
You think he's going to be a good Batman?
I think he's going to be a good Batman.
Based on what?
Based off of the little bit of stuff I've seen of him do outside of Twilight.
What have you seen that made you feel like that?
What's the name of it? There's a movie he did. I cannot remember the freaking name. No, it was one you were talking about, Kat.
I can't even remember the name of it right now.
That doesn't help me.
But hey, I'm sorry. It was a movie that he did where he was the older brother of this little girl, and their dad was a businessman. And at the very end of the movie, it basically gets revealed that he's standing in the Twin Towers on the morning of 9/11, and he gets killed by the airplanes and stuff like that. But big spoiler for the end of the movie.
We're never going to watch it. It's fine.
Right.
If you don't know what happened on 9/11 at this point,
right. Well, the movie, they don't tell you the date or tell you where his dad worked or anything like that.
Oh, okay.
It was the very end of the movie where it's panning out of him standing in the office and his dad with his little sister finally taking her to school for the first time after they'd had the big family heat moment and stuff like that. And he's sitting in his office going to talk to his dad because he's the royal fuck up in the family and shit. And it pans out and shows him staying in the Twin Towers, and it shows his dad looking at like a newspaper or something, and it's September 11th. So it's just like, holy shit, he's about to die. But yeah, so the movie though,
I see dead people.
Yeah, I see dead people. But the movie though was a lot more serious of a tone. It was for anybody that actually watched, like was into any of the Twilight movies and stuff like that. It was like watching Daniel Radcliffe play the first thing that was not Harry Potter for a lot of people. So it was like watching Pattinson play something that was not Edward Sparkleface. I can't even remember.
Well, he was Cedric Diggory too.
He was in Harry Potter. He was Cedric Diggory.
Yeah.
The with the tournament.
Yeah. I realized that, but he had such a minor part. He wasn't a major cast member in that.
No, he did play a part in the grand scheme of the time paradoxical aspect when you realize that movie is actually just a doctor trying to stop Twilight from happening.
Right. Because David Tennant's in the movie also. It's a joke that the doctor was trying to stop Twilight from happening by saving Cedric, so then that way he wouldn't become a vampire.
Okay.
In which he wouldn't. The look on her face is so totally lost right now. She was just like, what?
You gotta realize, I was probably 16 when I saw that movie, and I haven't watched it since. Like, the fact that they were like, oh man, they're casting the dude from Harry Potter when Twilight was coming out, I was like, who? And then when I saw what Cliffy was in, I was like, yeah, I barely remember that scene. And then I was a Twilight groupie, and then I wasn't, and then it's an embarrassing moment in my past. Let's not talk about it. And then I followed him because it was just kind of like, wow, like everybody else in this movie was okay. And a lot of the people in this movie really sucked, but he was actually a pretty good actor. So I followed him for a little bit, and I was like, oh, wow, he's actually, he's like a chameleon. He can take on the role that he plays so well. And he is a very respectable actor to me because he actually, if he doesn't know the character he's playing, he will actually go the extra mile of looking up the source material. When he was casted to play as what's-his-face in Harry Potter, he actually read the character. He read the books and stuff. When he was casted to play in the Twilight movies, he read the books because he wanted to know his source material. But the thing that I think is going to make it exponentially better with him playing Batman is the fact that he didn't actually have to go out and read about Batman and learn about Batman. He actually knew what the Batman said.
Okay.
So
that's going to give him an interesting take. But like I said, I'm reserving my call until I
my
see
wallet.
the movie because realistically speaking, the trailer was good. It was bloody. It was dark, and there was that visual scene of the beating of the last guy. And that was full on Batman lost in the moment kind of thing.
I have to say that moment impressed me because I legitimately was expecting them to do the "I'm Batman" line right there.
Right.
And the fact that they didn't and decided instead to go with "I'm Vengeance" was cool to me. I like that.
Well, it was a harken back to the Batman animated series.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, definitely. But we appreciated the fact that they didn't go,
"I'm Batman."
Right, I'm Batman.
I mean, if they had it, I'd have been just as fine with it too. Like I wouldn't have cared.
I'm more impressed with he didn't do a Bale with the voice. I'm glad for that. And don't get me wrong, I love Christian Bale as Batman. I hated his voice.
I get you. A lot of people didn't like his voice. Okay.
I do prefer it when you actually hear them make a distinguishing.
Yeah, it's not about the distinguishing. I do like that too. You need to have a difference in voice because hi, Freeze, I'm Batman. Wait, no, you're Bruce Wayne.
Right.
So, but
we're also jaded because of Kingdom Come, Batman, Nightfall, Death, Return of Superman audiobooks, and hearing characters hearing the guy saying the lines, talking as Bruce Wayne, and then you hear the sound effect of him putting on the cowl, and then when the cowl is on, his voice changes, and he
drops like 2 octaves.
Right, and this is the heated model. Like, and he's Batman all of a sudden. Like, that's a...
Sir, are you sure you'll be warm enough in under? Don't worry. I brought my own suit, and this one
is the heated model.
Wait, a haberdashery?
Usually a hat shop, Robin.
We invited to the Mad Hatter's Tea Party? Yes. And it's not polite.
And it's not fashionable to be late.
Yeah, so there be great lines in that audiobook, though. That's the thing about that most people don't realize. If you never ever had the privilege of listening to the Nightfall audiobook, the drama they did was a full cast audio, I suggest you search it out and look for it because it is fantastic.
It is amazing.
It's great. And of course, the Kingdom Come full cast audio is just...
Well, Kingdom Come is my gateway comic. It is the comic book that I tell people when they say they're not Superman fans, they're not DC Comics fans. I tell them,
if I can't convince you with this,
if this comic book doesn't convince you, then you're not.
You're not convinced.
There's nothing I can do to convince you.
Right. I mean, if I had to think of a comic to tell people to read first, to do that kind of sort of like a series, like a trade paperback to pick up, for me, I would say The Death in the Family.
Yeah.
Would be the go-to. Because
so,
it has a great story.
That rolls into, and it's ordered. It'll be here on the 2nd. I just ordered the World's Collide #1 with the sticker. It's sealed, hadn't been opened for like under $10.
Beautiful.
Went and just got that out the way. None of that. But speaking of Death in the Family, have you seen the trailer for the next DC animated movie that's coming out? That's basically a choose your own adventure.
I have, and I'm waiting to see how that's going to be. I'm interested to see how that's going to run.
I cannot wait to buy the Blu-ray because that's really the only way to watch it. Because even though you can go out and legally download, even though I don't endorse people legally downloading anything because it's wrong, but I know people can go out and do it. I'm not crazy. I know how the world works. But I feel like that is one of those movies that you can't illegally download and watch properly. Like, you need the interaction that is programmed into, like, the Blu-ray or whatever.
Exactly.
For you to actually have the full experience of that movie.
Right.
I'm even wondering about the digital versions, because they're all about digital now. How is that going to
Yeah, I'm just going to wait till it hits Blu-ray and buy it, and then I'll send you the code. You can tell me how the digital part works out.
Yeah.
Because I think it's going to be great because you're going to get to choose whether or not Robin lives or dies. And depending on whether he lives or dies determines on how the rest of the movie plays out.
Yeah.
Oh, God, that's going to be...
So there's going to be scenes from Under the Red Hood. There's going to be scenes from other Batman movies all in it together. And plus there's going to be new stuff because you're going to get to choose whether or not Robin lives or dies.
Right.
Dun, dun, dun,
Speaking of
dun.
Under the Red Hood, that was a fantastic movie, by the way.
Man, I watched it on the anniversary. It's been 10 years, 10, 15 years since that movie came out now.
Oh, wow.
I can't believe that.
Yeah. I said the same thing. I was...
So one of my favorite parts, and if anybody missed the fandom, please go look it up. We posted it up on the Facebook page. the funniest bit of the entire.
Actually, we'll just watch that today. You're talking about the Batman 66, Batman Beyond.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, it's epic.
It's the most amazingly funny thing I've ever seen. And
so for anybody,
original actors to come back to do it and everything,
I would watch untold hours of that.
So for anybody that doesn't know what we're talking about, Batman Beyond, which is Old Man Bruce Wayne with Terry McGinnis, who takes up the Bat mantle, are talking because they have found some sort of footage of the 66 universe Batman. So the campy Adam West Batman and Joker and stuff, and oh my god,
that's not the Joker, that's a Joker.
It's a Joker.
I want to make that distinction there. All right, Bruce, calm down.
I'm talking about we were laughing so hard.
Mustache, it's hypnotic.
I can never get over that.
Like I almost felt bad for Robert, but then I saw the elf shoes again.
Right. It was single-handedly probably one of the best things that easily, on top of all the trailers and stuff they showed, it was definitely one of the best things that they showed during DC fandom.
I'd like to know how they even came up with that in the first, because it's great. It's fantastic. Amazing idea. Like, how did y'all even come up with that in the first place? That was awesome.
Somebody was sitting around one day over lunch.
There was some
taking a 3-mile walk around or 3 blocks.
Stuff.
Yeah, there was some extracurriculars going on.
Yeah.
And somebody was like, "Yo, what would happen if future Batman saw Batman 66?"
And they started laughing, and they started ripping them out.
One thing led to another.
Next thing you know,
smuggled one in her vagina.
So
that was
this needs to be a thing. It needs to be a series because I would watch the whole thing. Just to laugh because oh gosh. Hey, say hello to my sister.
I don't know what's going on. That's her Meg laughing. I don't know what happened.
That's her Meg laughing.
For all those that are wondering, that is my wonderful sister-in-law, my sister Meg, my brother's wife, in the background laughing and giggling.
Very soon to be wife. Wife enough right now.
Yes, we did hear you laughing and giggling, and now the entire world will hear you laughing and giggling because it is recorded on the podcast. Wow! That wasn't even a believable evil laughter. That wasn't even.
Evil if a wanna.
Yes, baby, you could be totally evil.
I would laugh for my life, even if I was strapped to a table with a laser trying to cut me in half. If that was the laugh that followed it.
It's like, oh, ha, ha. Why are you laughing? I'm sorry. I'm totally taking this serious now. Oh God, I'm going to die.
You expect me to talk? No, I expect you to die, Mr. Bond. Wah, ha, ha. I'm not talking.
Now I'm done. You know what? I'll talk if you don't do that laugh. How about that?
I'll tell you, you can let me go.
I'll tell you that I feel bad about myself that you caught me. How about that?
I feel bad that you caught me now. Yeah.
I think I'm going to have to give up my spy badge now. I just don't understand.
I got to go back down to just, I can't be a 00 anymore.
I'm just 7 now. I got a lot of
So let me ask you, Will. Me and you discovered Avatar: The Last Airbender around the same time.
Yeah.
I remember watching it with bated breath with our niece Dominique when she was younger. We got her into it and she loved it. Still loves it to this day. And I remember, wondering whenever it was going to come back when the first book ended, and it took like 2 years for book 2 to come back.
Yeah.
How do you feel about the original creators deciding to walk away from the project of the live action for Netflix?
That means we should do it.
Well, I mean, Netflix is still going to do it, but
I know, but I don't have any faith in it. If the original, if there was something that caused the creators to walk away from the project, that removes any faith I had in it of being good.
According to the articles I read, they originally went into all this with Netflix telling them that they were going to be able to have, free reign. They were going to stay true to their vision and back them up on their decisions, all this other stuff. And then it turned out that was not true.
It wasn't. I mean, okay. So I'm going to, because I've read 2 or 3 articles about this.
All right, then take it away, baby.
One of the articles stated that they were wanting to make it more adult. Adding a little bit more, like adult themes to it and stuff like that. And so there were creative differences there, regardless of whether or not that's what was the final straw. I think the biggest one, because they did mention this, is they don't have the financial backing to make this show look as good as it did when it was animated, because making that happen in a series, even in a movie, is, in a costly thing. But if you're talking about a television series where that level of CGI or special effects of any kind are having to be used, it gets pricey. And for them to want to do it, they would have had to shell out a ton of money. And so Netflix was like, this is becoming too costly, and they were like, well, we need it to look like this, or else it's not what we want. And so whether or not it was the more mature themes or the financial aspect being the final straw is to be determined, but those two together ultimately resulted in the creator saying, we're walking away from this. And Netflix is still pushing ahead with it, but I mean, realistically speaking, asking, for a financial endeavor like that was too much to begin with in the first place.
Well, realistically though, I mean, I don't think it is, because their numbers alone on them running the entire series should have been giving them enough faith that it was going to work, because the fans turned out in record numbers for the release of Avatar: The Last Airbender to be streaming on Netflix.
Yeah.
So with those kind of numbers, if you have the creators, that gives fans faith. You have the creators behind it, and it trying to, because we all know what happens when the creators weren't involved with that shit of a movie. Okay, so
leave M Dog alone. Leave M Night Shyamalan alone.
With a twist. With the twist.
M Night Shyamalan alone.
We're not going to talk about the catastrophe that was Shyamalan's.
I have my own theories about why that movie turned out the way it turned out, but that's beside the point.
Right.
That was his big twist, that it wasn't good. Ha twist.
What a twist.
But no, yes and no, because it's like, people don't really actually think about how expensive CGI budgets and special effects budgets are and stuff when they first go in. So you go in saying, hey, we should only need this much money, and they go, okay, green light it, you're good to go. And they're like, well, okay, looks like we need a little bit more. It's like, okay. And then eventually it's like, where's the cutoff point? When do you quit asking for more? Several years ago, I think it's been about 10 years ago, there was a TV show that came on Primetime Network, Primetime Network TV station called Terraform, I think. Was it Terraform?
Yeah, wasn't that the one that was tied to a video game too?
I don't know if it was tied to a video game or not, but I do know that it was, a dino world, and all that other stuff. And they used a shit ton of special effects and CGI in that, so much so that even though the ratings were there and even though the views were there, they had no budget to make a season 2. They drilled themselves into the hole making season 1. And that's ultimately what Netflix was looking at doing with trying to make Avatar, a live action series, look as good as an animated one. And I have spoken my mind about this a couple of times. I think that they just need to leave the shit alone, because we have the story already. You're not going to have lightning in a bottle twice. You had a great casting, a great story. You had great animation and stuff like that. Just leave it alone. You can do so much more with animation than you can with live action, just because of the realism of what is there.
Realistically, given that train of thought, if they really wanted to do something and have fans be behind it and still have their budget and their money work, what they should give us is a series that bridges the gap between the end of The Last Airbender and Korra.
And that is exactly what I keep saying too. I'm like, if you want to actually give us anything, don't give us a shot by shot of the cartoon. Continue Aang's story. There was so much shit that went down between the time that him and Katara kissed on the cliff of whatever, and you see the little 4-year-old Korra doing 3 types of bending at the age of 4, which is completely fucking possible, but we're not going to go into my issues with Korra right now.
No, but she had a natural affinity, though. That's the thing.
That's not good enough of an excuse for me.
She's the Avatar. That is the excuse. as an avatar, they have a natural affinity for all of them. Now, the only problem they ever have is they need full training in their opposite bending form. But they can do the other. They may not do them as well as a natural bender of that style. But
you see, I have problems with that too. Okay, Aang's natural elemental opposite was Earth. So Earth was the hardest for him to try, and that's what. And they said whatever your opposite is for Korra's story, it becomes the element opposite of your personality suddenly, not the opposite of your bending. Where it was bending and Aang's. I have so many problems with Korra's story. So many problems.
Remember, though, that bending changed in that 50 some odd years in between.
No, but the rules of bending don't change. The rules of the Avatar have been the same for hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years.
They still had to make some sort of. I don't know why they made that creative choice. It was not the right one to make, obviously, because that's apparently a button for you. But still,
well, it's not really a button. It's inconsistent, and in stories, you learn consistency drives the story and stuff. So between Korra's story and between Aang's story, there was a lot of inconsistencies.
But they were. The thing about you got to remember, they were two different people, though. That's why there were differences.
Well, I'm not talking about difference in the people. People are fine. Like, Korra herself as a character, despite what everybody else may feel about her and her, knack for wanting to give up too easily, she's 16. She has whimsical feelings about things. She's 16 years old. She's allowed to want to give up easily. You know how difficult being a hormonal teenager is? Don't go back to it, people. It sucks. We have hormonal teenagers. We know how difficult it is to be them. We see it through them. But there's inconsistencies in the world setup because, like I said, the prime one is in Aang's story. They said whatever your opposite of your bending ability, for Aang being, air, his opposite being earth, was the hardest to learn. But then you get to Korra's story.
With that, though, if you think about it, realistically in the story, he didn't have as much trouble learning earth as he did with fire.
No. Well, that's because he was learning them out of order. He was supposed to learn all of them in an order, and he tried to jump the gun because he was having problems with earth and learn fire first because he's like, this is too difficult or I can't get it or whatever. So he tried to learn earth at a sequence and ended up doing it wrong and accidentally burning Katara and stuff. So it's like, there was supposed to be an order to how things were done. And for Korra then suddenly that, like I said, they suddenly say it's the opposite of the person's personality.
Right.
Which is the reason why she can't control air yet, because it's the last one in her bending cycle, but it happens to also be the last of her personality. It's like, no. See, the only reason that happened is because y'all wanted to make her this extra special bender who was a prodigy and overcompensating for something. I don't know what, because it's like every single avatar was a prodigy. That was the point. They were a prodigy of their style, and some of them, adapted to some of the other techniques, easier and stuff too. Like, it just feels like by the time they got to Korra's story, like it was rushed. It wasn't thought out. There was inconsistencies that suddenly made Aang's story not make sense, and it just was like, okay, like, why did we change this? Like,
yeah, I mean, they made creative decisions that they thought worked, or they thought would work in the grand scheme of things, but they also kind of made them without thinking about the fact that the fans would remember the rules that they set down before.
Right. It's like one of the other things. It's like lightning wasn't necessarily an easy thing for firebenders to learn how to do.
Prodigy, you had to train hard to do it. Now, this comes on now. Everybody can do it.
Well, like every other firebender could wield lightning, and they did it as a job.
Yeah.
They're power generators for the city. And then, Toph learns metal bending. And I get that she would have taught it to her kids and stuff, but to teach it to an entire military, force, like, who's to say that they could all even learn that or even make sense out of it?
Well, that's the thing. Once she got it down to a path that she could teach her kids, it was easy then to teach it to other people. And it makes sense militarily. to use a form that nobody thought that Earthbenders could do and gives them another angle. Because if you're fighting against Earthbenders, you know how to defeat Earthbenders, right? You know where their weaknesses are. But now they're throwing metal. Because beforehand you thought all you got to do is encase from metal and you'd be good to go. Take them off the Earth, they have no power. But now they have metal. So now what do you do?
Okay, I'll let you have that one. But
well, one of the things you have to remember about Korra was that it was never intended to be more than just one season.
Oh, I know.
And that's where a lot of it falls apart. Because they had a demand, but they didn't have a plan.
Right. They had the first season.
But a lot of the problems that I'm talking about show up in the first season, too.
Well, okay. Then you're talking about the problems of how the world evolved and the changes they made from Aang's time to Korra's.
But they were looking at it as you have to also look at it as they went from a feudal system to the Industrial Revolution, and there are major changes that happened in our own world through them.
Within 100 years, I know.
Even with the supernatural powers.
We still haven't asked the next question yet.
I know. So we're still on Avatar. I was going to ask you, it was a question that was posted in the group by Dominic, who posts some amazing stuff in the group. Shout out to Dominic. He posted popular anime that you just couldn't get into.
Hunter x Hunter.
You didn't get into Hunter x Hunter?
I didn't either, but I've also never watched a single episode. When I say I couldn't get into it, it's kind of
I mean,
I've never watched any of it, so
you can't get into it if you never actually watched it.
That's why I'm not saying it. Like I'm like.
Okay, so I will go ahead and say Fairy Tail, Hunter x Hunter, How to Get a Girlfriend in a Dungeon, or whatever the hell that thing is.
Is it safe to pick up girls in a dungeon?
No. Okay, that's different. I'm thinking about the one that's is it wrong to pick up girls in a dungeon?
Well, that's the same one, yeah. Is it wrong to pick up girls?
No, because I love that. Because actually, when you watch that, it's fantastic. It's really good. Character development, great fights, the magic system, everything about it is fantastic.
I might go back and give them a shot now, but it was one of those things where every time I turned around, all I could see in anime was these things, and it was just like, oh my god!
I just know I couldn't get into One Piece. I'm right there with you on that one. No matter what I did, I could not get into One Piece.
I tried. I watched like 2 episodes of that, and it was so bad. I couldn't do it. Now there are other ones that I tried and didn't like, but then I tried again and it was okay. And that one was One Punch. And what helped me was that One Punch Man. What helped me was Tony. Tony's explanation of it, his description of it helped because I was coming into into One Punch Man with the normal general idea of a main character being working his way to being so OP by the middle of the end of the series, so it makes sense that he's killing everybody so fast.
Right.
And I had to let that go and realize Sal Tomei, for whatever reason, is already that strong from the get-go, and the main problem is that he can't find anybody that he can fight and it'd be that good. And they actually give him a challenge. And that's what made it good. And then once you get past that, the humor of it really pulls it together. And it's a funny, good little anime.
I haven't gotten into One Punch. I haven't tried. I haven't given it a shot. I will admit that. I will say though that Tony's recommendation did help to get me to start watching My Hero Academia.
Yeah.
To give it another try.
My Hero's fantastic though.
To give it another try, his recommendation did get me to give it another try.
What was your initial problem with it?
That he was Batman, and I didn't want to watch an anime about Batman.
Well, how was he like Batman?
He sat there and studied like everybody else and figured out how to beat him. It was like, great. So it's like 300 episodes of the Tower of Babel storyline from the Justice League. I don't want to watch this shit.
That's not what happened, though.
And I realized that now that I've given it another watch. But on initial watching, I was just like, I've read this story. I've seen the animated movie. Neither one were as long as this anime is going to be. I'm not sitting through this. Like, that was just my...
But that's the thing. Like, realistically, when you look at it at the beginning, yes, he's a super fanboy, so he studied them all. And that can be initially you see that. But once you get into the series, you realize that is only a small part of what's actually going on that show.
Which is again, once I gave it a shot and actually started watching it again, I realized it's really, really good. And I appreciate I'm glad that I gave it another shot. But I haven't watched One Punch Man. I couldn't get into One Piece. I couldn't get into Bleach.
I tried Bleach. I really did. But I was talking to my friend Liddell. She's in the group too, so she watches it. Shout out to Liddell. And we go back and forth about different anime. She has different tastes than I do about a lot of stuff. She likes more of the boy love stuff and more romantic things. But we do
Prince of Tennis and stuff like that. Together.
Huh?
Prince of Tennis and stuff like that.
Yeah, like Prince of Tennis and Oran High Host Club, that kind of stuff. So
oh god, hair
watching. Yeah, I know, right? So we were talking about Bleach because she was trying to get back into it, and so the problem with Bleach is she was watching it, and then it starts to drag around like season 4.
Them 4 episodes.
Good God, I cannot stand when an anime drags. It's like this is a visual medium. If you start dragging, I'm gonna check out.
And see, I have actually had that same problem with a couple of animes too. And it wasn't just Bleach, the anime. One Piece did it to me too, because I'm actually probably the only person that's in our group that apparently has fucking watched One Piece.
Curtis.
Oh, okay.
Kurt watched One Piece.
Yeah, Kurt loves One Piece.
Kurt always comes to my rescue. Him, we love the K groups together, and now we love the One Piece together. So anyway,
Kurt loves K-pop.
What? Really?
Yes.
Kurt listens to Big Bang and everything else. Yeah.
Yes, me and your brother are both huge into Big Bang. So boom.
Okay.
Anyway, I got into One Piece during Shonen Jump days. So when it became an anime, much like Naruto and Bleach and stuff like that, I was already invested in the stories and stuff because I'd been reading them in Shonen Jump.
I love Shonen Jump too, but like for me, what was good was like I was reading about Yu-Gi-Oh! I was reading about Naruto. I was looking at the greatness of the underrated anime.
The freaking Yu-Gi-Oh! Manga was so much better than the anime ever was.
I couldn't get into Naruto either.
Naruto is good. Now here's the thing. To be fair, I liked the original Naruto.
To be fair,
much of like Shippuden, and I only watched like 2 episodes of Boruto because just the name alone pissed me off. It was like, you gonna name your kid something? Name your kid Soda after you. Do better than that.
Boruto.
Yeah, they are Japanese, like.
I know, but I couldn't get into it too much. So,
different culture.
Still, it was. I watched I had read the different ones and things like that. So, but I never read any of Bleach or One Piece because it didn't appeal to me in the manga. So when the anime came out, I was like, I don't give a fuck.
Dude, I spent the money on it. I read that shit cover to cover. But that was me. I mean, even the ones that I didn't like, because I really didn't like Hakura no Go, but I still read it.
Right. But it was a massive book, so I didn't feel bad skipping over one series in that massive book that was a Shonen Jump.
But anyway, the problem that I had, like, Naruto became it because I got into the Shippuden and then I eventually fell off, and that was because I didn't have internet. And by the time I got that chance to watch it again, life had fast forwarded and I was in a different point. Bleach, One Piece, all of those fell into the category for me of they went on too fucking long. Like, it had no ending.
Bleach now, because I'm looking at Bleach, and Bleach is looking like Mount Everest.
That's my problem with One Piece too. Motherfucker said like after it's been it's been what 75 years or some shit like that or whatever for One Piece.
No. You got that. After it'd been on for like 10 years, he was only 75% done.
Yeah, no man, I'm good.
I saw a TikTok about this the other day. They were like, I need y'all to realize something. Naruto became the Hokage. Bleach did what he needed to do to find the souls. Yu-Gi-Oh! Completed the puzzle. How the fuck have you not found that piece yet? What the fuck is wrong with you? Right.
Well, it's because they're looking for one island in a place that cannot be navigated and yada yada yada. It's so convoluted.
You're not selling it very well.
I'm not. I'm sorry, but when I fall off of something, I can't sell it very good. Like, it was fun in the beginning. It was different. It was fresh. It was new. It was exciting. Eventually, that excitement wore off for me. I did like. I would say if you go to watch it, like, the first, chunk of episodes are great, especially when they go into character backstories, because there are times whenever like the goofiness and stuff like that gets set aside, and there's some extremely dark and serious moments that are just like they blindside you because you're just like,
wait,
bro, what happened to this funny ass? Huh?
One Piece has serious moments?
Oh God, yes. Oh God, there's some very serious moments. Every single one of those characters has a immensely tragic backstory. Like,
okay,
you say so.
I'll take your word for it because I'm never going to watch it. But okay.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not expecting you to, but they do. And because of how goofy it is and how slapstick it is, stuff like that, when those moments happen, it is like a punch to the freaking solar plexus. You're just like, holy shit, what happened? Why am I sad now? Like, yeah, but anyway.
Part of my problem with One Piece came from when I tried to watch it. I was, when my computer was messed, or when most of my stuff on my computer was put towards stuff for school.
Right.
So watching anime on my computer wasn't a thing. That wasn't going to happen because I needed all,
everything be devoted to workshops and, yeah.
So I'd watch it on Cartoon Network. And without fail, it seemed like every time, just like my curse with Doctor Who, remember with David Tennant? Seemed like every time I went to go watch One Piece, and One Piece was on Cartoon Network,
it was the
same fucking episode. Now, mind you, later on, I found out that it wasn't the same episode. It was just part of the same story arc. And apparently, like 5 episodes take place at the same spot with a bunch of just dialogue happening.
Oh, God.
Oh, no.
And it's just a bunch of talking and flashbacks. And it's like 5 episodes all happening right at the same, and it's just like, that did not help me want to see this anymore.
Right.
Like, no, I get that.
Yeah.
But it's also, for me, it's part of the thing of, like, at this point, it's like the Napoleon Dynamite Big Lebowski syndrome. People talk about it like it's so great, and then I try to watch them like, okay, I don't see what y'all see. And y'all got all this hype for it, y'all dick riding it, and I don't see that.
All right. Another one for me, and Will, I'm sorry if this one like hurts you at all, but it's like I've quit watching Attack on Titan.
That doesn't hurt me.
Okay, because I knew that you started actually getting into it for a little bit, and it's like
I watched Attack on Titan for like 6-7 episodes, then I stopped.
I watched the first season. I tried to watch the second season, but I fell into it was like Game of Thrones for me. There was too many characters, there was too much shit going on at the same time, and the story never progressed. It took a whole season to tell what happened in a single damn day because you have too many damn characters doing too much shit at the same time.
I get that. I totally.
It's like, God.
When I tried to watch Attack on Titan and I asked a friend about it, they was like, their explanation, I shit you not, this was their explanation for it. They was like, look, the first like 2 or 3 seasons are going to be boring. It's like, so you may want to skip ahead to like season 4. That's where all the action is, and it gets good.
That's not even 4 seasons.
Or whatever.
4 episodes.
Whatever. I was just like, I shouldn't have to skip anything.
Exactly.
For this to be good.
The thing
I also don't feel like you should have to wait for an anime to get good. There are too many choices nowadays
for anime. Exactly.
To have to get good.
But I don't know if it was written this way or not, or if it was a studio production, because I never read the mangas. But it feels like a failure to have so much exposition and build up at the beginning of the story. Like, as a writer, when you're taking creative writing classes, the first thing they do is tell you to not do that. You will lose your audience and trying to throw so much exposition and backstory to them.
Well, apparently in Japan, that's not how it's done.
Apparently in Japan, they didn't get that workshop because
you realize we're talking about a country that literally has a game show about who doesn't poop first.
That's true.
Take that with your grain of salt as you're trying to explain this. Okay, they literally have a game show.
I used underwear off a vending machine and shit. Like, yeah, it's.
I mean, think about it. G4 used to have an entire segment when G4 was awesome. They used to have a whole segment on the video game show that was called "What the Fuck Japan." There literally is a game that was made in Japan, never released in America, and when I explain it, you'll understand. There's a game where you play as superhero buff guys wearing just Speedos, and they fly around shooting stuff out of their junk to fight bad guys.
Yep.
What the fuck, Japan?
Pretty much.
I
mean, just come on.
But I also felt like they put LSD in their water to make their artists and stuff more creative over there. Because God, they come up with some of the weirdest shit.
Hands down. Even the basic anime has lines of areas where you're like one of my all-time favorites. You guys know my all-time favorite anime right now is Food Wars.
Yes.
As a chef, that is one that's geared for me, hands down. But there are times when I'm watching it and I'm like, what the fuck, man? Like, I get it. The food is amazing. The first season,
and it blows people's clothes off.
Exactly. Like, look, the first season, I get it. That was our shtick. It was funny. It was great. That's amazing food. But now here we are, 5 seasons in, and we're still doing this.